right, welcome back to Shoot Punch Kick, the only podcast where three former POWs join forces to take down a local drug dealer and review classic and occasionally shitty action movies from the 80s and 90s. I'm Telly, joined by my Brooklyn regulators, Dash and Carlos. What's up, guys?
What's going on?
I got 16 in the clip and one in the hole.
There you go. Okay.
Nick Carlos is going to make some bodies turn cold.
Rest in peace, Nate.
All right, so today that's a perfect setup since we can't play copyrighted music. Today we're going to review our very first Western on the podcast, the 1988 adventure Young Guns, starring Emilio Estevez and a shitload of awesome 80s actors. And this was a first-time watch for Dash and myself and a return viewing for Carlos. So this film I picked this week because this and the sequel were movies that I always remember seeing the movie poster for in the video store as a kid, but never got around to renting because at that time I wasn't interested in Westerns. And that's changed a lot since I've gotten older. And also there's been just a lot of buzz recently about a potential sequel to Young Guns. So I thought, why not? Let's go for it. So to start things off, in addition to your history, your personal histories with this film, I'd love to learn more about your relationship with the Western genre, which some people have called the superhero movies of its time. And so I'm curious to hear about that and whether or not you have a favorite Western. Dash, you kick it off.
For me, Westerns were the thing that my grandpa used to watch all the time on his recliner, that sometimes you just fall asleep, and like my earliest memories are just the gun sounds because it was just always like a shootout in the episodes. It's interesting because a lot of things that I like overall are very inspired by Westerns. So for example, like some of my favorite episodes of like Breaking Bad with Vince Gilligan are like just straight up Western, guy in black, good guy in white, and just very like good versus evil to your point on superheroes. I saw Tombstone probably when I was like maybe 10 off of like Michael Biehn being in it, and I just remembered it was so action packed and rated R, and people actually got shot and killed, and it took me a while to get into. But now that there's like 310 to Yuma and a lot of these like newer ones, True Grit with like faces we remember but just a little bit more of a nod to authenticity, I'm much more of a fan now than I was back in the day.
Carlos?
So, kind of the same as Dash here. As kids, some kids were into cowboys and Indians. Some kids were into pirates. I think for me, it was ninjas and samurai. And so as a kid, I was never really that into Westerns. And I think part of that too is because there's more than one type of Western, right? And, so my stepfather, was into Westerns, but they weren't the spaghetti Westerns that I think a lot of people think about now when they think about the genre. It was more the John Wayne kind of Westerns. And I think the reason that the spaghetti Westerns later on in life spoke to me a little bit more was because a lot of those tropes mimic some of the samurai stuff that I would watch, where you would have the lone gunman represented as the Ronin. In the Japanese movies. I remember the first time I really had any interest in a Western movie. I remember very clearly my stepfather taking me to go see Dances with Wolves. And I really enjoyed the movie. I might have still been a little bit young for it, but I finally got to see that there was some stories that could interest me in that genre. And to Dash's point, also around that time, maybe a little bit later, I saw Tombstone, which I really enjoyed even at the time. Another one that I liked was The Quick and the Dead. Right, but again, that's a little bit more. I don't want to call that a serious, Western, but it spoke to me. Sharon Stone, right? And Gene Hackman, young Leo DiCaprio. And so I was never really into cowboy movies, and to some degree I'm still not. It's not my favorite genre, but it went from when I was a kid I had no interest and wouldn't even bother, to now if there's one that has the right actors, the right directing, I will give it a shot, and sometimes I'll like it, sometimes I won't. But it's still not like my favorite genre. I mean, it's got to be really well done for me to like it. And so that's kind of where I'm at with westerns as a whole?
Well, the quality of westerns, there's such a broad spectrum because like the bar to entry to do a western was very low. So you'd have like really like shitty B quality, you know, westerns or TV shows where it's very hammy, and then you have like works of art like the Sergio Leone movies. And that's what did it for me when I saw Once Upon a Time in the West, and it just like blew me away in terms of what you can do in a western. And I was like, oh, you see traces of some of your favorite movies. Like I saw that after I went through my John Woo phase. I'm like, oh my god, that's like, I could totally see the parallels that you guys are talking about, whether it's samurai, hitman, modern day. And I think when you're a kid,
when did you see that for your first time?
Like how old were you with that? I saw that in college. I bought the tapes because I was a Charles Bronson fan, but that was the only movie I hadn't seen because it was so long. And I'm like, I'm not into westerns, and he's like amazing in that movie. It's been parodied a million times. Yeah, so it kind of made me appreciate what was possible. And then also, you know, saw Tombstone. I might have saw it with some of you guys.
I think we all saw it together.
Yeah, I think we saw Tombstone together. Yeah. So I just want to also clarify. I did see this movie, but I'm pretty sure that I didn't like it at the time. So I don't have any recollection of having seen it other than knowing in the back of my head that I had seen it before. So for all intents and purposes, this is kind of my first viewing. Although Young Guns 2 was on cable, like I don't know, a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
All right.
It doesn't count.
Kind of my second time seeing it, but I've never.
I saw it, but I didn't like it.
Yeah. All right, but it's funny that you guys bring up Tombstone and Dances with Wolves because I didn't. As I was doing research, I realized the film we're going to talk about today was kind of the spark plug in kicking off like a little mini renaissance in Western. So, speaking of Young Guns, so here is a quick synopsis from ChatGPT. It's set during the Lincoln County War in New Mexico. Young Guns follows a ragtag group of young outlaws led by Billy the Kid, played by Emilio Estevez. After their benefactor, John Tunstall, is murdered by a corrupt rancher, the group sets out for revenge. Deputized, but soon going rogue. What begins as vigilante justice becomes a full-blown war against the establishment.
Regulators.
Yeah. There you go. All right. So initial reactions. And Carlos, we'll start with you since this is your kind of maybe sort of watching it.
Yeah, man. I had to watch this movie 3 times, and I was not able to get through it up fully in one go any of those times. I kept on just getting distracted. And you know, a lot happens in the first couple of minutes of a movie. It has to grab you. And as soon as I saw the intro, which is just them grainy footage of them smiling at the camera, and then they start shooting, and the music doesn't really feel like westerny, I was like, oh boy, I'm not gonna like this. And it didn't, you know, within the first 10 minutes I was checking my phone, so I decided to give it another look like the next day. Same thing. You know, it's really bad when you get up to use the bathroom and you don't bother to pause it. And so yeah, that's my first impression was that I think that first intro sequence said it all, and I was right about my impression based on the rest of the movie.
Okay, wow, that's rough. Dash?
Yeah, not that far off. It just felt like a movie that I saw 30 years too late. It's like you ever watch a show that's like not a sitcom, but there's 22 episodes, and they'll tell like a story that you're familiar with, and you're like, oh, let's see who Al Bundy is in their version of It's a Wonderful Life or whatever. This felt like, had I seen it and grown up with the Brat Pack, and it's like it felt like them being like, hey, let's make a Western. And it's like, oh, cool, Emilio, who's gonna be Charlie Sheen, who's gonna be these people, and without me having that like real connection to them and needing to see them, I'm just like, it just felt very cosplay of like, anytime I watch a movie where it's like a lot of cameos and I don't know who any of the people are, I'm like, all right, cool, I'm sure they had like a good time making it. From Carlos's agree with that from the beginning with the music and like the smiling to camera. It was just like, all right, this isn't going to be like
Unforgiven.
Yeah, exactly. Like the tone is going to be with that overall, I thought there was some stuff like I kept being shocked by some of the violence in it, because I was like, god damn, like you just blew a dude's head off and like showed it, and, a knife in the neck, but for every like step towards realism, it just had that it reminded me of I like the movie Book of Eli with Denzel Washington, very like a post-apocalyptic. And it's like every time you see someone who's not Denzel or Mila Kunis, their teeth are all messed up, the makeup's really good, and then it shows Denzel and he's like super clean, pearly white teeth,
fresh fade.
And it felt like they just dropped these kids into a Western, and like everyone else was kind of like doing what they should have been doing, and it's just like Kiefer Sutherland, hair feathered to perfection, and you know, it was just it was it didn't hold me the whole way. I was surprised to find out that this was like the movie to give Westerns their mojo back, because I would not have pegged it for that.
Yeah, well, as the Gen Xer of the group here, I definitely watched this with nostalgic eyes, and because I recognize everybody and grew up with all these people, so definitely appreciate it on that level where it's like, oh yeah, that dude, that guy from 3 O'Clock High, blah blah blah. As a movie, it was okay. But it was for me just more of a nostalgic watch, because you're like, okay, this is the Brat Pack and meets MTV meets Western. But Carlos, my ass did tighten up a little bit, like in the beginning when they had the intro. And it was like the modern, like contemporary rock music. I'm like, oh no, this is gonna be like one of those things. I'm glad they didn't go with that. Like for the rest of the movie, they don't. It's not like rock and roll and the Old West. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are not like that, don't look very accurate. But at the same time, from the research that I did, it looked like the writers and the directors did their homework and tried to kind of at least make this as accurate as possible within the limitations that they had. So. Wow. A little bit of background on this film. This was released on August 12th, 1988. So this movie's friggin' 37 years old this year. And it was a late 80s twist on the Western, right as the genre was considered dead. And this capitalized on the popularity of its young all-star cast. And this was the Western for the MTV generation. Directed by Christopher Kane, stepfather of Dean Cain. Journeyman director who is credited for bringing a cinematic look to the frontier. I wasn't too impressed with like the visuals, but I think he did his job. Written by John Fusco, who also wrote Crossroads with Ralph Macchio and other movies.
Bone Thugs.
Yeah, and so you had a lot of like really good talent behind this film, and then you had the cast: Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips, Charlie Sheen, Dermot Mulroney, Casey Simasco, Terence fucking Stamp, Lord Zod. When I saw him, I was like, holy shit, anything with Terence Stamp makes it better. Yeah, That's right. What am I thinking?
He used to be a Lord.
Lord Power Rangers or something. All right.
Jack Palance.
And then Jack Palance, and even the stepfather himself, Terry O'Quinn. So let's start with the cast first of all. Like, just what did you guys think? I mean, there's some people that are still big stars, and other people have kind of faded away. But what do you think of the cast in terms of the casting for the film? Dash.
Yeah, I mean, it was a stacked cast. It's just one of those. I didn't think anybody was like right for this. And because it was so many of them, it just, for me watching it, and again, this is super hindsight of, 37 years later, it just felt like the Brat Pack makes a Western as much as the Muppet Babies of Star Wars, right? You're like, oh man, Fozzie, C-3PO. Yeah, like I like it too, but when you're watching it, you're not like, oh man, I didn't see Kermit. I saw Luke Skywalker, and their star power for me was like at a detriment to what they were trying to do, because it was just, that's Lou Diamond Phillips. Like every scene he's in, I'm like, that's Lou Diamond Phillips. And I just would never look past who anyone is. And I don't think like, the story itself or anything led them to just be lost in, they weren't putting on accents. There wasn't anything like super fancy about it. So,
listen, I love the fact that star power's here. As a matter of fact, I think some of the main choices were actually other Brat Packers who decided that they did not want to be in another ensemble. I don't think there's anything particularly egregious with any of the performances. I feel like they did the best that they could with what they had. I mean, again, Terence Stamp, his presence, even with all his presence, if you give him shitty dialogue to speak, it's still going to be shitty dialogue said with a lot of presence. So I mean, I wasn't blown away by anybody's performance, but I don't think it has really anything to do with their performances as much as what they were given to work with. So yeah, I mean, the fact that there's a lot of stars there, I guess, is a thing. One thing that occurred to me was, I think, to your point about this being a Western movie for the MTV audience, was watching this as an adult. I think that's what makes it a little bit harder. I feel like if I was a teenager or younger watching this movie, this would have spoke to me more, because a lot of the things that happen throughout the plot kind of feel a little silly. And so as soon as once the switch in my head flipped and said, okay, this isn't meant to be a Western, a gritty Western, then it kind of made a little bit more sense, because I felt like these guys all looked too young for me to really take seriously as grizzled gunfighters. But then I realized they're not supposed to be grizzled. That's kind of the point. They're young guns.
He's called young
and
guns.
Historically,
Wait a minute.
I got there before you. And so, and then I did a little bit of the research, and the actual characters that they were going to portray were this young when it happened.
Younger.
As a matter of, we're younger, yeah.
Than the actors that were portraying.
Yeah, John Tunstall, the Terence Stamp character, was actually younger than the rest of the crew. And they were all in their 20s. The actual people were younger, so you kind of got to take that, into consideration when I was thinking, like, I'm just having a hard time buying this, even with as good performances as they could try to muster with what they had.
Yeah, I just enjoyed just watching the actors do their thing. Although I was disappointed that Terence Stamp got killed so early.
Spoiler alert.
Yes. Spoilers for a 37-year-old movie. He was killed off so early. And as I was watching this, I was remembering our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles review, and saying that I was complaining that they took Splinter out too early in the first act. They should have kind of held on to that. And I think that same criticism for this. Because I thought the scenes between Terence Stamp and Jack Palance were like electric. And Jack Palance was awesome too. And I thought it was going to be about these two warring kind of father figures, like sort of like an X-Men kind of thing going on. But it became more of just like seeking revenge for their master.
Well, let me ask you: do you think Jack Palance was excellent, or is Jack Palance just Jack Palance and everything he is?
Palance, but he's always excellent as Jack Palance.
Yeah, so he's a steel scener for sure.
But I thought he was like he's being himself, that sinister kind of like old asshole. With plotting something against the other group, but I thought Terence Stamp, he's always just a great presence, and I thought that dynamic that he had, where he's like this like stable father figure to these like young men who just are kind of lost, was great. But then they just killed him off a little too fast. And then Jack Palance is also not in the movie enough, so I wish that there was more of those two guys.
Well, they were the ones that made it feel like a Western. Yeah.
Him,
and I'll also add Terry O'Quinn just for gravity. Lawyer. And then it just felt like anytime it's not that, like, again, it just felt like, hey, let's put in this group of kids in that world. And I think anytime it was like on them, it just felt hokey. Where, when you had like the adults in the room, you're just like, fuck yeah, this could be like a Western.
Yeah, I think the script doesn't give the guys a lot to really do except like bicker and get high and whatever. And the characters just don't really have enough time to develop. There's really not much characterization.
Yeah, like Charlie Sheen. Let's just for example, like let's take Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen is a great actor. I mean, well, he's a great. He was a great actor. He was great. One of the people from that genre. I don't know if I've ever seen him doing a performance, but he's definitely magnetic. He's a great movie star. And he's supposed to be a major part in this movie. As a matter of fact, when Terence Stamp's characters died, everyone like looks to him to be the next leader. But what do we really know about him before this whole situation happens? He breaks up a fight in the very beginning once between Diamond Phillips and that other guy whose name I can't pronounce. And they listen to him. But, the point I'm getting at is by the time he dies, spoiler alert again, midway through the movie, I didn't care. Like, they didn't give me enough of him to care. And this should be the next most important death in the movie after Terence Stamp. And when he died, I mean, partially because he died in such a stupid way, I just kind of laughed. I kind of laughed it off, right? And I just feel like you've got all this depth of talent, and I don't care about any of them really, for the most part. Lou Diamond Phillips giving that monologue about what happened to his tribe. I mean, he was going for Oscar gold, right? He was giving it his all, but the writing and the scenario that it was in, the context it was in, it was laughable to me, right? And so I feel like none of this is the fault of the cast. I feel like it's all.
Let's talk about the direction then, because I think it might fall in those hands there. So obviously you don't have like a superstar director leading this film. And yeah, I just thought after I watched it, I was just saying, yeah, who directed this and what else did he do? And it didn't seem like
Karate Kid 2, I think. Oh no, the next Karate Kid.
Next Karate Kid.
Yeah,
the next
exactly.
Karate Kid.
So yeah, the director of the next Karate Kid directed Young Guns, and it just felt like he was probably just there to kind of make sure the camera crew showed up every day, and just kind of maybe this was like one of those studio direction by committee movies, because it didn't seem like there was much of a stylistic signature on this. And I think that's where kind of like if they had a better director, I think the film would have just turned out a little bit better in terms of just everything, but especially with the characterizations.
Yeah, well, I think then you're making a movie and you're not making Brat Pack's does westerns. And like they don't do anything aside from maybe a little bit of the Lou Diamond Phillips monologue that's outside of something you've seen them do before. There's no given my main criticism watching it is just how divorced certain moments are from the others. Like Billy the Kid's a straight up sociopath, right? Like he's killing people freely, has no remorse. And if that was the main point of the movie, you would have someone either breaking down or a moment where they reconcile with this stuff. There's just no moments of weight from one moment to the next, and there's not supposed to be. It doesn't feel like that was ever an intention, and that kind of goes with everything. They can't be the Brat Pack if they're all brooding over Charlie Sheen dying. They can't be the Brat Pack if they're unpacking PTSD and the weight of taking a man's life. They're just joking around in between the scenes, and I think it's really just to see them wearing the costumes of a Western and woohoo, shooting their guns. And none of the directional choices seem to get away from that, where getting away from that would have been leaning towards making a film. And for me, the directing left the weirdest taste in my mouth at the end with the slow motion, where I just laughed. There was, I don't know what they were going for, where some of these choices were, but the them talking, it was just crazy that someone watched that back and they were like,
"Yep, that was the one."
Export it.
Definitely wasn't. This was not a auteur's showcase. Because I think after you watch really great westerns and you realize the potential of the genre to just whether it's just creating tension in a gunfight or just capturing the scenic sort of frontier and all that. None of that is here. This just felt like they rented a backlot and they just shot a movie as quickly as they could.
I think it goes
pure
back
commercial entertainment without any artistic ambitions.
Exactly. So I keep on going to the point, and I keep on saying the same thing because you put it in the run of show, and it word verbalized what kind of the way I was feeling with the whole Western for an MTV crew. I felt like. And I'm glad to hear both of you guys feel similarly, because I was struggling in the back of my head about maybe I'm not buying this because I already don't like Westerns in general, or I'm not the biggest fan of Westerns. And the Westerns that I do like are Westerns that are made for adults, that they have adult, concepts of, justice and, who's right and who's wrong and loneliness. And what kept on hitting me was this was meant to be a Western movie. I don't want to say for kids, but a lot of it really felt like like we're not going to delve into anything mature, other than maybe some overt themes of like sexualism and stuff. We really want teenagers to come into this movie, not have to think too much, and have a good time. And I have ninja movies that I watch for that, and kung fu movies that I watch for that. So if I'm going to watch a Western, I'm going to watch one that's really good, that makes me think. And there was not a single piece of this that I think made me think, and that was intentional. I really do feel like this Western was not meant for us, right? This is like my first Western, right? And I think this was meant to appeal to 15 and 16-year-olds.
I do have to say I do admire the ambition of the script and what they were at least trying to do and make this as historically accurate as possible. But I felt that they already, like from what I read behind the scenes, that there was more to there were more people in the regulator crew that they had to cut out because there were too many characters. But I felt they still had too many characters, and this would have probably been would have like a TV series would have served this story a little bit better, so you can get to know the characters and watch them develop.
Who would you have taken out if you had to pick at least just one regulator? Who would you? And I think I know who it's going to be.
I probably I saw this movie like 3 weeks ago, and I don't remember like Dermot Mulroney's character at all. So I probably
is it Dylan McDermott?
Not Dylan McDermott. The guy from Scream, whatever.
I know. They're interchangeable, so it doesn't matter.
Point of no return. Yeah, him. How about you guys?
Dash, you want to go first?
Sure. Charlie Bowder. I'm looking at the IMDb.
Yeah, no. So that's the answer. That guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. Lou Diamond Phillips or Emilio Estevez. Get him out of here.
Okay.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, he's one of the only ones that had things to his backstory. Right? He had that whole weird thing where he saw the prostitute and he just wanted to like hold her. And I think I read somewhere too in the trivia that in a deleted scene when he comes out, it turns out that prostitute was actually his mother.
Hey.
Oh yeah.
Which kind of explains the whole. And she didn't remember that whole scene. She's like, "Oh, I don't remember you. There's hundreds of them. Whoever you are, whatever you want."
Back to the Future influence there.
Yeah,
but
maybe. But that guy I would have got rid of.
It's funny. I'll disagree because I did like his character. He was like the hothead, and there was some tension between him and Lou Diamond Phillips. So that's why I felt like, okay, at least he was there, and he had there was some kind of purpose for his character. Whereas other people they were just there. They were riding along, But okay. But moving on, let's talk about before we talk about just the influence and legacy of this movie. And despite you guys not being too crazy about the film, was there a favorite scene that you guys had from the movie? Carlos, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So I did like the scene where Billy the Kid goes into the bar and sees a bounty hunter who is out there to kill him, and he's kind of like messing with him the whole time, right? Takes the bullets out. I mean, say what you will. Again, we were talking about none of the performances being really good or being great, but I thought Emilio Estevez did come off as a sociopath, and I found him compelling, at least in kind of what he was doing. And I think that scene was a fun scene that kind of showed off that playful side. It was an interesting concept for, a shot. And anyway, if of the very few scenes that I enjoyed in the movie, that was a scene that I did quite enjoy.
Okay. I like when Emilio Estevez found out what's his name was a traitor. And they're like trying to figure out about like what to do, and he just shoots the dude in the head in front of Charlie Sheen, and then another dude tries to run away and he shoots him, and they're kind of like bickering amongst each other of what to do. But then they give him like his props for having discovered the traitor when everyone else was kind of like just kind of sweeping it under the rug. And I felt like that was like a moment of like reality and the juxtaposition of him with the rest of the crew, him being a hothead, because like, again, like the moment that you mentioned, it was so like,
cartoonish.
Yeah. Like Three Stooges days, which isn't like my kind of a comedy. And like, that's kind of why I didn't like Westerns. I think, One thing I forgot to mention earlier, the Western I saw before this, definitely as a kid, was Back to the Future 3. You know, like very like you're a chicken.
Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that this movie had a couple of moments like that where it was like, oh, this is like what I don't like about Westerns. But I thought that scene of the traitor calling him out, I was like, oh yeah, this is like kind of what I want to see. I want to see them bickering, and like I like that group dynamic where things aren't. I really like the dysfunctional family trope,
and it makes sense. Like I feel like that's the way that scene would have gone.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Right, you know, nobody knows what to do. I don't know. The only thing we can do is kill him. Kill that motherfucker. Make sure no one gets out because now the die is cast, right? And that was a pivotal kind of scene. So, yeah, I do get your point. Also notice there's a ridiculous lack of tumbleweed in this movie. I feel like all Westerners, I didn't see a single tumbleweed.
That was the director trying to be different. But
this is the moisturized West.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite scenes, I said earlier, I just love the scenes between Stamp and Palance. That was just kind of great acting showcase there, like very subtle, but also Jack Palance, rest in peace, just being himself and just being an awesome bad guy, and also Terence Stamp, because I've just known from like when I grew up, just knowing him exclusively just from Superman 2, and just seeing him play a good guy is always cool. So this film, it spawned a sequel in 1990, and it did, you know, these two movies, they definitely did have an impact on culture, you know, like from the Warren G song to just like John Bon Jovi and doing the soundtrack for the second movie, and that Blaze of Glory became a big hit that was on the radio all the time. And then it also just set off like a chain reaction of Westerns from the late 80s into the early to mid 90s, like Unforgiven, Dances with Wolves, and
Quick and the Dead,
who we all enjoyed. This Young Guns, it was made for $11 million, and it grossed $45.6 million, which was enough to consider it a hit, and I'm sure it did much better on home video. It also became a cult classic on cable television. And again, it proved that Westerns were still viable in some form, but you know, with a modern update. So critically, I think the critics agree with you guys. It gets a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, but a 76% audience score. So this is definitely more of a crowd pleaser than a critic pleaser. On IMDb, it gets a 6.8, and on Letterboxd, it gets a 3.3. And speaking of the critics, couldn't find a Roger Ebert review, but did find a Gene Siskel review.
Friend of the show.
He gave it 2 out of 4 stars. And he says, the story is told with too much affection for gunplay, and the only thought worth preserving is that these mythic figures of the Old West were often very young men. Big deal. He's complaining that's too violent. That would have drove me to see the movie. Peter Travers from Rolling Stone says, the boys shoot, ride, flirt, get high on peyote, and revel in enough self-adoring, anachronistic behavior to have all but invertebrate teeny boppers swearing vengeance on the film's makers. Okay, guess he didn't like it. Too many big words.
Can we also just say the worst scenes is that peyote scene, man.
Yeah, it went on
that
too long. That peyote scene was, you know, was terrible, they didn't know what to do with that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the third critic I had here was Janet Maslin from New York Times, and she says, Young Guns is best watched in the playful, none too serious spirit in which it was made. Okay, someone with at least an understanding of who this movie was for.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we go to the fans, on IMDb, Jim Ruth gives it a 10 out of 10, and this is from a review in 2017. He says, I've seen more than 100 Western movies in my days, but I still think that this is the most exciting Western movie out there. Maybe not the best, but definitely one of the few that I could watch over and over again. Movie fans, mount up. On Letterboxd, Gaffer Gabes gives this 5 out of 5, and this is a review from April of this year. He says, not just one of my favorite Westerns, but one of my favorite movies. Young Guns brings a whimsical feel to the genre with many funny and some touching moments. The importance of friendship and brotherhood shines through. But on IMDb, Raymond Padilla says, he says, pretty boys play outlaw. No one buys the premise for a second. Hollywood's brats with their perfectly blow-dried hair looking like male models that you can't imagine getting so much as a parking ticket without high-priced lawyers to bail them out. And they are supposed to be teenage killers who laugh in the face of death. Right.
Right.
All right. So let's go to the rating. And Carlos, how about you? Since this was like your first time watching this movie, you can start.
I am gonna give this 1.5 bounty hunters dying in an outhouse out of 5.
Okay.
I'm going with the same score of 1.5 murdered benefactors out of 5. You know, it reminds me of one. Like, I always have to catch myself when I meet someone that says they never seen Goonies. I'm like, you've never seen Goonies? You have
You
to,
bastard!
and I'm like, you can't watch Goonies for the first time as a 45-year-old man.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
missed it, and
Agreed.
I felt
100%.
like I missed it. I missed it for this one. I wasn't there.
Okay. I give this also 2 outhouse assassinations out of 5. I did appreciate it as someone that grew up with the Brat Pack, so I guess I had that sort of was watching it through those eyes. I thought it was competently made, but not remarkable. But I think the gimmick of just having all these stars from that period of time in one movie, and then great cameos by Terence Stamp and Jack Palance gave this at least made this watchable for me. All right. But the good thing that came out of this, I think, is the fact that now we know where that quote from the Warren G song comes from. So
Yes,
that was worth it.
Yeah,
It's a Nate Dogg song, but yeah.
Warren G and Nate Dogg.
Yeah, Nate
Okay,
Dogg.
it was on Nate Dogg's album.
Was it? I thought it was on Warren G. The name of Warren G's album was Regulators, right?
Okay. I always thought that was a Warren G song.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a Warren G.
Nate Dogg.
Okay, fair enough. I stand corrected.
Okay.
I was never a regulator, clearly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, tomato.
Yeah.
All
what
right.
are you gonna do?
Okay. So next episode, it's going to be Dash's pick.
Okay, so this is a movie that I have seen. I've only seen once and on tape, but I've seen the first one a million times. So to celebrate Predator Badlands having a trailer, and we can talk about that on the podcast, I am recommending Predator 2,
yes,
the Danny Glover classic. I don't know why. I've seen it one time on like a bootleg tape and just never went back to it. I've had this for, I don't know, at least like 10 years.
While you watch it, Dash, I want you to keep your ears perked for a Biggie lyric.
Oh man, I hope it's
where Biggie got. This is where Biggie got a lyric from.
Okay, I hope it's not the Richard Pryor one with the "suck on your daddies."
Oh no.
All right, a less questionable lyric. I hope.
Okay, I got a lot to say about this movie. It's definitely something I've seen many times.
All right, we'll watch it one more time.
All right, cool. All right. Okay. Well, regulators watching this, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast. And Shoot, Punch, Kick rides again next time. See you there.